All right, everyone. You know what time it is. It is that time again. It is 1 p.m. on Wednesday, so you know what that means. It is tipping points and puzzle pieces with my guest, Mark Boatwright-Frost. Let's go ahead and bring him on. How you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing pretty good.
You
It's a
feeling
bit crazy, but it's a bit good.
good, good, good. Well, we always have a really good show, and I see the topic is behind you, WWW. What a wonderful world. So why don't we jump right in?
Yep. And hopefully that I have those lyrics up on the sign behind me doesn't mean that we get canceled because somebody takes that as a copyright. But
I don't think it's gotten that far yet.
yeah.
Censorship is out of hand, but I don't think it's that far. We're getting there.
So let's jump in with the dark that needs to be looked at, and then go into the light a little bit more.
Hey,
So what a wonderful world! And actually, the topic of the show is, what kind of world do you want to live in?
mhm.
And you can come out real quick answer. You can come out in a thoughtful answer. But the fact is, what world we choose that we want to live in is what our children are going to inherit. It's what their children are going to inherit. And if science is correct, it's what we might not be inheriting at all in 100 years. So I love it. And I just heard this today. There was an interview that somebody had. Oh, it was the John Oliver post that I put up about water. And they were interviewing a guy from a water department in the Southwest somewhere. And he was saying, well, the overuse of water, that's just human nature.
Mm.
We will continue to grab and take and overuse and sell because that's just human nature. And my question to start the day off is it? So let's think about that for a minute. We have been on this planet, if you believe archaeology and anthropology and science, from somewhere between 1 and 3 million years. And our move toward constant expansion and acquisition and the taker culture that Quinn talks about can be traced for about 5, maybe 6,000 years on the outside. So what happened to the other 995,000 years that we've been on the planet? If we just take a million years as an outside here, is it human nature, or did something change in our culture? And what we're calling human nature is actually our cultural framework and how we react with it. And if something changed, and stay with me here, if something changed in our cultural framework, that means we can change it again. And if this path is leading to extinction of the human species on the planet, and let me say right here, the planet will do just fine without us. It will thrive without us. But if the extinction of human species is within the next 100 years, or beginning soon, like now, and moving forward, we have a choice to make now, today, this minute, about what kind of world we want to live in and how we want to live in it together. And that's the topic today.
Okay.
What does that look like? I think we can agree that what we've got isn't what is best for us.
Hmm. What world do I want it to? I mean, that is I think that is a question that requires some significant thought.
Yeah, but we can talk through some of it, and having knowing that our listeners will understand that I'm catching you cold, as I always do, and we're gonna talk through it now. Understand, I've given it a lot of thought, and the Kitsap Resiliency Project to some degree is based on it. But we have to come to the table with our pieces and determine what that world's going to look like. That's what your puzzle piece is, and your puzzle piece is going to be very different than my puzzle piece. But it's amazing that they'll fit together to make something for everybody. but we need a lot more puzzle pieces to do that. Michael needs to bring his, Rob needs to bring his, Terry needs to bring hers. We need to have as diverse a group of people at the table as we possibly can. Otherwise, we won't be representative.
I'm typing in the chat right now. So my answer is I'd like to see everyone housed. I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to see everyone fed, and I'll go into detail on that. I'd like to see everyone healthy, and then seeking what it is that they want to pursue. Um, Let me go ahead and type that in there.
You,
Want
you you just want me to get to episode 25 before episode 25.
to. Well, and in regards to being fed, I don't want people to get the bare minimum. I want folks to have choice, to be able to choose what they want to eat, how much they want to eat. Uh,
Healthy and nutritious.
right. But I do want them to have choice. I want folks to be housed, and not just shelter, but housed in a space that makes them happy. Um, and we're just talking about what a wonderful world, right? So
Yep.
how realistic that is, it doesn't really count in my answer right now. But that's what I'm thinking is, and folks are healthy, right? They're able to go to the doctor, get the procedures, medications, whatever they need, when they need it, and there's no delay in that care. And then ultimately, if we think about Maslow's hierarchy, once your basic needs are met, food and shelter and safety, then folks can move on to self actualization and pursue what they want to be, what they want to become, the mark that they want to leave on the world.
Right.
Uh,
Wouldn't that be a wonderful world?
that would be a wonderful world. It would.
So for today, let's take our assumed reality and set it aside.
Hmm.
I give everybody here permission to take the assumed reality about what can and cannot work and put it in a box and set it next to your chair and leave it for later because it'll be there when we get done. For right now, let's just think about what that looks. And I like where you're starting with this. What would happen if people were housed in a humanic way, in a human centric way, meaning that they're comfortable, they have heat, they have space. I mean, it may not be a mansion, but at least it'll be something that supports them until they can move to something else. And we'll talk about what that looks like.
Everybody doesn't need a mansion. Everyone doesn't
Right.
want a mansion.
Right. I'm not big on mansions. I'm just fine with a small home.
Right.
More room than that is more to clean, and I don't really want to deal with more to clean. Um, and folks, that's to let you know I do house clean, and it is reasonably clean. But cleaning more space than I need, yeah, doesn't really appeal to me. And also, when you have a lot of space, you tend to get stuff to fill that space, and I
Mhm.
don't need any more stuff. Um, so, food, we have nutritious, healthy food for people to eat. We have health care for people. We'd have to add education into so that people have the opportunity to learn what they want to learn so they can become self-actualized. Fair enough.
Mhm.
So we have food, shelter, healthcare, education. Anything else I'm missing?
Well, I mean, you'd want justice, right? If there were.
Equitable, equitable enforcement of the social contract.
Mhm.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah. Rob says, "I would like all the things you mentioned, and hopefully less strife because of it."
Absolutely. Yeah. So if a lot of crime happens because people don't have those basic things
Mhm.
covered. I mean, there's a lot of more not necessarily esoteric, but a lot less visible things that play into that, like bonding with other humans, healthcare, which would come under the medical care as far as I'm concerned. But medical care is kind of funny. You have a medical insurance plan, and it doesn't include dental or vision. Now, or necessarily healthcare or mental health care because they are outside of being part of your medical health. I don't understand it, but some arbitrary decision by an accountant, I am sure. Um, So the strife actually, in some ways, might take care of itself. But I'm interested in other thoughts that you have about that. And if that were the case, what would self-actualization look like?
Well, I think that's where you go back to your Star Trek economy, right? Where folks are, able to pursue whatever it is they want. So I want to be a medical professional. I want to be a researcher. I want to be an athlete. I want to be a musician, and that would be welcomed and accessible. And still, everyone's needs are met because if everyone could seek that naturally in a Star Trek economy, folks would align with all of our needs would be met,
Right.
right? So we wouldn't have everyone wanting to be doctors. Some people would want to be sanitation engineers, right?
Some people like doing those things, but for other people, they can't understand that there are people that like to grow things. There are people who like to make food. There are people who like to can things, or like people like to cook, and those are valuable. Not everybody's going to be a rock star, and rock stardom would look a lot different in that future as well. It would mean that you would pursue your art and not necessarily fame and fortune. What would that look like? But somebody who cooks could cook and do some amazing things because they're free from the restraint of having to make a living and somebody else's vision.
Well, I'll say, even in the Star Trek economy, I think there was still fortune, right? I mean, depending on your station, I was watching. Let me just geek out for a second. So I'm watching
Go
YouTube,
for
and
it.
there was a show, and it was talking about the different classes of starships, and they were talking about Picard's ship, and he has his own mini ship that's on the bottom of the hull. Um, and so, I thought that was pretty awesome. They said he never used it on the show because that would be too pretentious for Picard to use, but he had it. I guess he had like three shuttles of his own. So, there is that.
Well, actually, that's not historically inaccurate for a British Navy or any Navy, as far as I'm concerned. The captain on the boat always had his own pinnace
Mhm.
to sail ashore. It was never, I mean, it's never not been like that where the captain and executive officers did not have a a a boat to take into shore for business. That
But
was
there,
not a
there
supply boat.
is,
Yeah,
but there's a level of class there, right? Like,
right.
that's the captain's yacht.
So
In
and
some
we've had this conversation before. So I just kind of want to point out that Roddenberry created an outline for what the
Mhm.
futures look like, much like the Kitsap Resiliency um, project is a framework that still has to be filled out. And then what we're seeing on television is, and the movies, are the visions of the writers who are creating the series based on Roddenberry. Roddenberry hasn't written anything since he died, and for a little bit before then. So we're seeing a lot of variation on a theme.
Mhm.
And while all of them are, well, most of them are enjoyable. I had my issues with Deep Space Nine, but that's a personal thing.
Really?
Um, yeah, Voyager and Deep Space Nine were not two of my favorite variations of the Star Trek.
DS9 started rough, but it grew on me. By the end, I loved it with the Dominion and Worf coming over. Yeah, I thought it was great. And
Okay, well,
as it went
it,
on.
it kind of lost me. I mean, Avery Brooks is awesome, but it kind of lost me along the way. But um, it kind of went back to that whole Star Trek thing where or Star Wars thing, where the Star Wars is about conflict, about good versus evil, but it's constant conflict, and neither side is getting the upper hand. In all 9 series, we're still not sure who's where at the end of it all. So Star Trek is more like we made a decision, and yeah, okay, yeah, it is, Michael. Um, but at the end of Star Trek, the beginning of Star Trek, we've just made a decision to come together, and that's where we've ended up. Now there's all kinds of variant. Uh-oh, we're going off on a topic here.
Hey, man, you did it.
Yeah. So, um, but the point is, we decided to. we decided to do it differently.
Mhm.
And we're at that point. I mean, we can't wait for World War III. We're at a point where we're facing an extinction level event. And it's going to start with all kinds of interesting things, including at some point in the near future, our inability to grow food.
Mm.
If you watch I put this up on the Kitsap Resiliency Project site. Please go look at it. Is John Oliver's most recent post, and he's an amusing guy, but his reporting is phenomenal, and he talks about water. And it's a reality you need to see unless you like dying of thirst. And it's not high on my top 10 list here. It's actually not on my top 10 list of ways I want to go out. You can live without food for a week or more. You can live without water for 2 or 3 days.
Right.
So water is something that we really need to pay more attention to. And people think we're in Washington State, we don't have to worry about water. Look how much rain we've had. But what's our groundwater doing? Are we pumping it out faster than we're using it? Are we polluting it so that it's unusable? We don't know. So our better world should include conscious awareness of our resources. What's this?
This is the Kitsap Resiliency page.
I don't remember that one being on my page. Okay. Oh, those are the pictures. Okay. Do you have are you at the, posts? Go down to the posts right below that.
Here's the show right now.
Yep.
And it is on 1,000 channels on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
Pick one.
I don't remember that one being on there.
Mhm.
Hold on, I'll just get you the link. Give me a second.
Well, what's great is that, the page is active, right? So if you're not recognizing the post, that means that people are posting.
Yeah, it's in the community stuff is filling up pretty well, and I think that's kind of cool.
That is good.
Let's see.
That's the barbecue.
Okay, there it is, right there. I've
just popped that in the chat there.
I'm going to run the way. Boom and boom. There it is.
All right. All right. So I definitely cannot play this because I will get copyrighted for that. So
yeah.
I'm just going to put that in the chat for everyone. So
it is the last week, it is the most recent last week tonight on water. It is actually quite brilliant. And he's, if you've never watched John Oliver, you should. He's funny. Yeah, you can't play that.
Nope. And that's HBO. Yeah,
so this is a plug for the show. We are not showing the show or commenting on the show, just so you know. And now that I've said that, we have a recourse for copyright people.
Yeah.
It is a brilliant show. It is talking about water, and what is really out about water talks about groundwater. It talks about California, and I've been saying forever, and people, and finding the source material is difficult. That California has dropped 5 meters in the San Joaquin Valley because of groundwater use.
Mm.
And he basically brings it right out, points to the source material, and says, here it is.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly, Michael. It is really powerful. He's got amazing stuff that he's covered. And
I'll put some stills up. Sorry there, John, to catch your mouth like that, but it is what it is.
He'd love it. But it's understanding water is a vital thing, and understanding resources. We use resources too much. So one of the things I would say above all of the things that we've already mentioned is, if to have the world of the future, I want us to look at resources differently.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to understand that we have one planet. Oh, side note, to be a John Oliver moment here. We talked last week, and we all see the news about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos going to space, and they're looking at Mars to colonize Mars. I just read an article from NASA saying that it looks like Phoebus, I think, is the moon of Mars, is looking like it's going to crash into Mars at some point in the future.
Really? How
So
how
go ahead, migrate there, please.
how far in the future?
It didn't say, but it says that there are the article I read, and I didn't actually get a chance to research it much, said that there are indicators that it's starting to lose its uh, the gravitational field, and it will at some point crash into Mars. And it's not the first time that's happened with Mars.
Mm, which is probably why Mars looks like Mars.
Yeah. So understanding that is an indicator. So thinking that we've got another planet to go to, and if we really want to geek out, we can talk about asteroid mining and all the stuff that is possible in the future once we perfect some technology. But the reality is we have one planet, and we'd better stop using the resources faster than they can be replenished.
Can you talk about?
And going back to it, we're not human nature. That's not human nature. Human
Mhm.
nature is about our humanity, not about our cultural framework, which is broken. Yeah, what did you want me to talk about? The
Ju-
the the
Yeah,
sinking Lake Powell.
yeah. Remark on
Okay,
that. This is
so
super concerning.
I want to say a couple things about this. One is 4 years ago when the last super 3 or 4 years ago in the last super drought, they were 50 feet above the turbines on the dam on Hoover Dam.
Hmm.
They're now 12 feet above the turbines on Hoover Dam. When those turbines stop turning, and right now the pressure, I'm not an engineer, but I can only imagine the pressure is significantly less than it was to turn the turbines because there's less water weight pushing through there.
Hmm.
But if those turbines stop turning, Southern California goes dark, and a lot of the other states do as well. So when we're talking about the water levels in Lake Powell going down to this, there are many things. There's the water level itself and the fact that there's no water or less water. There is the fact that there are dams dependent upon the flow of the water from the Colorado River and from the lakes that will stop turning, and that is a significant amount of the baseline power of Southern California, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and all of those areas. So this is more than just one thing, and I've said this before. Dominoes cascade, and we're starting to see them cascading, and we can't ignore this anymore. We couldn't ignore it. We couldn't ignore it 10 years ago, but we did. But now we have to make some decisions. And think about this for all you Washington State people. Sorry, Bailey. What was Bailey said? Elon Musk was sent to the star. Ah, so we have cascading. We have the cascading. We have to make some decisions now. And they're going. Where I was heading with that is we are looking at climate migration to Washington State that is going to increase the population of Washington State, like everyone's predicting, but not for the same reasons they're predicting through growth of the economy and growth of business and growth of housing. We're going to have people coming here because other states are no longer livable. When we look at California and we look at California losing water and losing the ability to do agriculture, that is 30%, 30% of the U.S. agriculture comes from California.
For folks that may not have seen this image here, this is not the shade at the top. This is the old water line, and you can see those boats there in the water. So just imagine those boats. What? I guess what? Almost what? 50 feet or more.
60 feet higher.
So this was the old water line. I don't even know how much water it would take to replenish that loss there, but I don't think they can, right? Even if they tried
No.
to pump it from the ocean.
So here's a factoid for you that kind of blew my mind because I didn't know it, and this came from the John Oliver show. Is that Las Vegas is one of the best uh, examples of water reuse there is. They use water, but they reuse the water, and they use water not usable by other citizens, and they learned the lesson of making it work a while ago, and all new buildings have to fall in within a um, certain parameter, and nobody in Vegas is allowed to have a lawn.
Really?
Yeah, so they're all over water use in Vegas, which surprises me because I hate Vegas with a passion. So but I actually feel kind of good about them now.
Okay.
See, I told you he'd be happy with that. Look, um, so what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a world where we have water to drink, clean water to drink, and we have food to eat, and that we don't have to kill 3 billion people to get there? Because we can choose to have that world. We just need to make some decisions.
What do you think some of those decisions are?
Well, we've talked about some of them when we talk about the community networking that we're talking about doing, creating community gardens,
Hmm.
capturing rainwater, and reusing water. Our our wastewater systems are antiquated, and we continue to upgrade and buy the same technology when there are technologies out there that have been around for 40 years that actually reuse water and can bring water back up to potable levels. But we won't do it because people won't drink poop water or pee water. It's not that anymore. They've basically filtered it, and you're drinking that anyhow if it goes into a well because it's all the same water that's been filtered. Thing is that we're filtering it intentionally instead of pulling it out of a well after it's been filtered by the earth.
Wow.
It's about rethinking how we do things. It's about making decisions to go ahead and work on those things. It's about growing food locally. It's about working with your neighbors and skill sharing. It's about coming together and learning things you don't know together so you can complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. But always with the goal of keeping balance and working together and not necessarily taking everything so you have short term wealth because that's going to end it faster than not.
Well,
You know,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, you're talking about what we can do, individually with, urban gardens and whatnot, and we the people are many, so that would definitely have an impact. But
It's a first step.
yeah, it seems like a big band-aid, but we need to get the bullet out of the wound, and
Well,
that.
in this case, I think that we need to, and I'm going to take your analogy and go farther with it.
Mhm.
Our cultural framework, our social contract is broken. I think of it in my own mind, I think of it as a cancer. And it's a cancer that benefits a few and hurts the many. And we have a lot of people that do an amazing job of trying to patch the wounds and deal with the symptoms. And they absolutely have to be dealt with, and they absolutely have to be. But we have to start looking at the cancer, or it's just going to keep getting worse. And that cancer is, a lot of how we allow things to go. And you're right, we the people. So coming together in our neighborhoods, that's a first step. Coming together in communities, that's a second step. Developing grassroots networks is a third step. And then starting to make changes on a local level and building up to the national level is the step that we need to get to. But unless you can talk to your neighbors and work with your neighbors, we'll never get there.
Mhm.
We're too busy being red, blue, purple, right, left, whatever. And we need to get past that and become human. The human party is the only party that I'm interested in. The rest of them, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, until we form the human party, we can't address the symptom. We can't address the disease.
As I continue to just show clips from the show, Buckeye is the nation's fastest. I take it that's Ohio, right? Buckeyes.
No, I think that they're talking about Utah in this case.
Utah. Okay.
If I remember correctly, it's Utah.
took thousands, if not millions of years, fastest growing city, but does not have enough water to keep up.
Right.
And this is what you were talking about, that migration, right?
Yeah.
There's water.
At some point, there are going to be migrations coming to places with water that have more viable temperatures. But what happens when we get 5 million people more into the state? And by the way, for those who don't know, we have a 7 million person state. If we end up with 5 million people migrating from the Southwest and California to Washington State, we will have destroyed our ecosystem.
Mm. So would one of the easiest ways to do that, like you said, trying to come together, is um, diverging from kind of bucket politics, right? So,
Yep.
the left has, the things that they believe, we can put all those things in a bucket, typically, pro-choice, social programs, things like that. Um, Climate change, the right has their things, you know is the first thing is to separate some of those things out, right? Like, okay, it doesn't matter whether or not you're pro-choice or pro-life, we need water. So let's
Right.
deal with that issue and not try to conflate and throw other things in there to
Right.
solve this issue.
Find commonality based find commonality based on our human need. That's
Mhm.
rule number one. Find commonality based on our human need. And here's the other thing. I found this amusing. And I saw Chris Pratt on a news article this morning on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh no, Chris Pratt's saying something cool." And I looked at what he said, and he says, and I've never heard him be political ever. And he says, "I think the issue here is that on the far right we have a bunch of wackos. On the far left, we have a bunch of wackos. But the vast majority of us in the middle think both of them are wackos. And we need to start finding commonality among each other." And I'm not saying that that's what I believe. I found that kind of amusing. But the point of that I do agree with wholeheartedly is there are far more of us that don't believe in either of the extremes.
So how do we take our voice back?
We start talking to each other. We start engaging with our neighbors. And both you and I have had this conversation with bunches of people. We've now done barbecues for a few times, and we've got more coming up. And everybody goes, yeah, 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 and then they don't do anything, and then it goes quiet. And the thing is, we have to find the motivation, and that motivation, needs to be something to bring people together. I've been working on it for 4 years, and I haven't found it yet. And I have lots and lots of conversations. But I will tell you that there are more serious conversations going on now.
Mhm. I the Our pancake breakfast 2 months ago, we had a volunteer that is experiencing homelessness, um, and they needed a shower. And so I told one of my volunteers to take him to my house so they could take a shower. And they were so appreciative of that shower. Um, it's just some of those things that many of us may take for granted, and even if we don't, we feel blessed to be able to take a shower. To run the hot water. The water's hot; it's not cold, right? We can take our time. We're not in a room with a bunch of other people. To see a Craigslist ad like this, this is kind of where we're at, right? This is why the argument is, folks are advocating for people downtown Bremerton to have showers.
Yeah, no, I agreed. And I did, in fact, after having that meeting the other day, I did, in fact, send a link to a potential grant for that. And I will be over the weekend looking at General Services Administration, because they frequently have auctions where things like showers that were used in Afghanistan and Iraq go dirt cheap. Um, and sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. But with the possibility with the grant, you can go buy toilets and showers and a kitchen that can move around. But again, as I've said before, until we have that grassroots network, getting the politicians to change running blockades and moving the goalposts, as you talked about with yourself and with Bailey and with several other people trying to help, you're going to have to find a way to motivate them to change their minds. And the fastest way to do that is to know that they will not be reelected.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you need a grassroots network saying, yeah, uh, when you look at the numbers about what the mayor of Bremerton gets elected by, and weighted numbers, there's 30, well, almost 40,000 people in the city, and they're getting elected by 3 or 4,000 people. It doesn't take much to say, yeah, you're not doing the job we want you to do. You're not going to have that job next year. We'll put somebody in place that will.
So
And that's the lever.
let me ask you a question. And there may not be a right answer or a great answer to this. What would be more beneficial, to restrict people to one term so that they don't get stuck in office, and it's just stagnated, and not allow them to work for any of the folks that have been lobbying them while they were in office, or allow folks to have multiple terms so that they can enact, right? Because if you give someone 2 years, that may not be enough time to enact something and to see it through. 4 years, one term may not be enough. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I have mixed feelings about that. I okay, going back to the times of our fathers that put the Constitution together, they never envisioned a professional politician. They envisioned a peer representative, somebody who you knew who would go and do their service for the community and for the country by sitting in Congress and come back, be done with it, come back and do their job. They never expected hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary paid throughout the lifetime and all the rest of it. Because it's a good gig. You do your terms and suddenly you're taken care of for life. That's an interesting thing. But that's not what the Constitution envisioned and the constitutional fathers envisioned for our representation. And the side note on that is, which one of those people represent us? Seriously? If they have gone through their entire life from college to Senate or Congress without ever having a job or worrying about paying rent or struggling, do they represent us? When over half the country is now facing poverty, do they represent us? So how can we call them representatives for us when they don't represent us?
Mm.
So let's not even talk about corruption. Let's not talk about who pays to get them elected. Let's not talk about any of that. Just the baseline, the human commonality. How do they represent us when they have no idea how our lives are? So that's one side of it. Second side of it, and this is a brief story. There was a Congress representative in California named Willie Brown. He became mayor of San Francisco after he was a representative. And everybody knew, and I can't say whether he was or not because I don't know anything about the man really, in personal man. I met him once briefly. Everybody knew he was crooked and he made money. But the one thing about Willie Brown, and this is general knowledge, as I say again, I don't know. I'm not slandering him. I'm just saying that's the general word. But I will tell you one thing that everybody did know about him. When he made up his mind and he gave you his word, he stuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the most effective politician California has ever seen.
Wow.
They put term limits in to get rid of him. And California's been pretty messed up ever since then.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's the plus side of things. But my heart says that we should hire people go in to represent us and do a job for a short period of time, and then go back to real life as a peer of us. I think that's what the forefathers imagined. I think that would serve us best. But I understand the effectiveness of a person in charge who can get things done. But on the other hand, there are people who are effective too, and they don't do things for most people.
Mm-hmm.
They do things for themselves and nobody else, and for their party and for their cronies. And we've seen plenty of that as well. So I guess my answer to that is I would like to see people go in and do public service and come home.
Yeah.
Because I think that would serve all of us better. And if we had people connected and working on human commonalities, that would be a much bigger reality than not, because we would have a very clear vision of what kind of world we want to live in. See how I turned it back into that?
Mm-hmm. Mhm. I think one quick thing that we could do here, and I've always thought this is, you know, these beautiful golf courses, there could be such a better use of the water for actual people if you built homes on these, you know,
Yep.
vast courses here.
Or maybe not build homes where the desert will take over. Just let the desert be the desert. I'm kind of a fan of um, building in and building up than sprawling out. I think a lot of things could be done if we change our view of infrastructure from sprawling all over the place. And remember, I grew up in Southern California. I was part of the Los Angeles sprawl, where you don't. Uh, when I was in my 20s, I went to high school in 20s, and I was living in Newport Beach, California. Um, it was beautiful. There was a canyon across the street from where I lived that we used to slide down on cardboard boxes and do the tobogganing thing on the cardboard. We would play in the culverts. We would play in the fields. Nowadays that doesn't exist. It's a giant golf course, and the homes back then were $1 million in 1974 dollars. Now they're like 10 or 15 million dollars to buy a home, probably.
Mm, wow.
From now, when I grew up, we could drive down the coast highway, and the wind would blow through, and we'd see the beaches, and we could stop, and there were horses running free. Now all you see is homes from the coast highway, from Huntington Beach to Dana Point. All you see is homes. So sprawl is not one of my favorite things, and I would love to see humane, well thought out buildings that people could live in and have community features and gardens, and I think that a 3,000 square foot ranch style home isn't necessary for everybody. It would only be necessary for somebody who ranches or gardens, but most of us could do just fine in a you know 1,000 foot or less home in a tower that had features that would allow us to get outside and share with the community.
Yeah, I'd be interested in looking at some different designs. I've seen some units where there are no dining rooms because folks don't aren't using their dining rooms,
Yeah.
uh, the way they used to in the past. Because we're in such this microwave society, and just using that real estate in different ways, I think could be pretty cool.
And I have a couple of things to say about that. One is a vision thing. As you know, I was the executive director of Clean Technology Trade Alliance for several years, for about a decade. And one of the things that I ran across when I was going through this, and before they revamped the parking lot where Sherry's and Taco Bell, it's not Taco Bell anymore, but Kmart was. I was thinking how wonderful it would be to flatten that out and put a couple of concrete structures up there with underground parking and 300 units per structure that went up, and use this. They have out of, I think it was Sweden, but it could have been Norway. I'm not sure which. They had these concrete slabs, the SIPs, structurally integrated panels or insulated panels that are concrete that had fiber optics that went through them.
Mm.
So you got the thermal mass and the strength of concrete, but you got natural light pouring through it from the fiber optic channel. So the inside of the concrete panels would glow with daylight, making it a much more natural lighting inside the house. And things like that could be in play. You could create windows that went up to fiber optic periscopes on the roof that would look over the hill and reflect the views of Seattle onto a screen for your window, and you would have natural airflow. There's all kinds of things you could do to make these units much more attractive and humane. You could soundproof them, for one, because how many people have lived in an apartment building and really got tired of the children upstairs thumping across the floors all the time? I mean, there are all kinds of ways to do this. We just have to choose to do it that way, or demand, more appropriately, that it be done that way. So there are lots of things you can do. So that was one thing that I looked at, and I was kind of like thinking that wouldn't it be nice if we could use that space to create housing here that made sense? and
Yeah.
that could compact people more closely in a tighter proximity, and made it lighter. The other thing is that I keep seeing these ads for food delivery, and I kind of thought this morning and spent a couple minutes thinking about why I have this great feeling of wrongness around that.
Mm.
And I cook. Okay, I've cooked all my life. I think cooking is a way to bring people together. You and I both agree that breaking bread is a wonderful way to connect people, and I've thought that all of my life. And I'm thinking, why would I have somebody deliver food to me that I don't get to look at, touch, check out, and choose?
Because
And I'm
it's
going,
and it
because it's more convenient
yeah.
and more expensive generally.
Well, that's what convenience is, right? You're gonna pay for the convenience.
Right. And so I'm looking at this, and we'll switch slightly into we're running out of time, so I'll have to talk quickly. So anyway, for me, it's about choosing the food and touching the food and thinking about how the food is going to interplay. And I'll go to different places. Sometimes Winco is where I'll get my grocery, my produce, because it's way better than a lot of the other places. But let's talk about the job, the Uber drivers, the delivery for Uber Eats, the people delivering food to your house, and the fact that they make tips and they're doing well, but none of them are getting rich doing this. And there are more cars on the road, more pollution, more wear and tear on your car, more cost through all of that, and less jobs that afford you the housing and the American dream as we have seen it before. So when I
Mhm.
talk about what kind of world do you want to live in, I'm talking about re envisioning the American dream to be something more of a human dream. Let's work together to get our human needs met. And let's work together for a future that might be like the Star Trek future, where we have housing for everybody, where we have food for everybody, where we have education, healthcare, and then people can not drive the food to you, but you're growing in a community garden. You can go down to the table where the food has been harvested and choose the food you want to take to your house and cook and feed
What
people.
if I don't value that? Because, like, me personally, I don't value
Huh.
that. I don't like to cook. You
So
know,
you come down the hall and come to my house and I cook for you.
well, that'd be great. I'd be all for that. You know,
That's
sure.
that's the whole point about having a community, because there are people who do are like me that cook. There are people like you who don't.
Well, and
So
there's
you
a
can walk next door and have food.
there's an education that needs to happen, around what food actually looks like in its natural state as it's grown, right? And
Absolutely.
we will reject, let's say we, a lot of us will reject food because it doesn't look good, and they've modified it so it looks more appetizing and more plastic, if you will, more
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah. Funny thing is, I make dog food for my dogs. I know that's extreme for most people, but I make rice and burger together, and I give them a tablespoon of it in their kibble because they like it better, and it gives them a little bit more nutritional value. And I was cooking the beef the other day, and looking at it, I'm thinking about the cow it came from
Mhm.
and all of the process to get it there. And I'm going, wow. I wonder how many people actually know where their burger comes from and what it goes through to get here. And if you've ever read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, you may never eat burger again.
Yeah, let's keep the mystery a mystery.
Yeah. I wonder whose finger I'm eating.
Right.
Is that a fingernail?
Ignorance is
Yeah.
bliss.
Yeah. So, what does our future look like? To me, it's a future that has food that's grown locally, people sharing skills, and like you're hungry, you want to have dinner, come on down to the house. I'll make you dinner. It's down, and we'll put food on the table. And it may not look plastic, but I'll tell you, it'll taste good. There are people who garden. I mean, I garden sort of, but Terry loves to garden. There are lots of people that love to garden. So there's the ability to do that. There are people who are awesome and love to crank wrenches on cars. I'm not one of them. So for me, it's like, yeah, I used to do it and I don't want to do it anymore. So if somebody does that, I'll feed you if you'll crank on my car
Hmm.
and keep my car running. There are people who do things. There are people that are medical professionals, and I bet you most neighborhoods have somebody with medical training in them. Knowing who that person is in an emergency is a really good thing.
You know, it's interesting that you're kind of on this line of conversation as we things worsen, you know, the economy and everything else. The barter system we'll see come back even more. So, you know, find out, identify what your knowledge, skills, and abilities are, because there are other people that need them and want them, and that's going to be the way that you kind of get through. So, I definitely encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and we're working on a couple of three things to introduce people to the thinking that we're promoting here, and B, to all of the efforts that are currently going on in Kitsap County to help people, you, the homeless, everybody. And we're trying to put together an event that will uplift all of the people doing the work and bring the community in to meet them, ask questions, and learn what's being done here. I mean, there are folks doing everything from feeding the homeless on a daily basis to helping you not be evicted from your home to taking care of your medical needs. There are all kinds of things going on here. And what we want to do is get the people engaged in knowing who that what that is, and then start talking to each other because on the local level in your own neighborhood is the best place to get started.
So I think that is the most challenging piece, right? Like everything that you're saying, I would say overwhelmingly most people would agree with.
Mhm.
But many people really need that bullet point. Like, what do I do first? What do I do next? I need a checklist so I can check it off. I've done that. All right, what's next? How do I get started? And so there's this
Yeah.
analysis paralysis that takes place, and it's like, all right, I want to get involved. I want to do something. I'm a
Okay.
little
Well,
apprehensive if I want to do it, but I just don't know how to do it.
okay. I'm pulling something up and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment.
I like it.
Okay.
And while Mark is
Okay.
pulling that up, uh, for the summer, Gather Together, Grow Together is feeding your kids. So if they are school age, up to the age of 18, you can come to 4040 Wheaton Way in Bremerton, Suite 203, from 12 to 3:30, or to KCR, which is at 1201 Park Avenue, downtown, or yeah, almost right outside of downtown Bremerton, from 12:30 to 3:30 and get a free meal for your kids. So come on down. We'll be doing it all summer long. Unfortunately, the meals are not free for adults, but they are only $5 and they are quite delicious. So all summer long. Today is day 3. So please help spread the word there. All right.
Absolutely. And the G2 staff is fabulous and is doing everything they can do to make everything happen for people. Okay, so this is not a checklist, but it is a toolbox for you. It is a book that I recently wrote. Is volume 2 of a series of 7 books. I will be putting volume 1 up next, but this I thought was the more important to get out first, which is the Resilient Community Playbook on communication and connection, and helping to understand how to overcome issues in conversations with your neighbors and with people. And so this is the first book out. It's $9.99 on Kindle. Um, it's unfortunately only an ebook at the moment. Until I get 7 books out, they won't let it be a paperback. So I'm working on that. Next book should be out next month, which will be about volume 1, which will be about perspective and looking at things slightly differently. Um, that's one. Two, we are working as we're building the 7 volumes. We're working on a checklist to go through with this, so that will be out later in the summer. Also, we are having discussions about having space available and some new partnerships coming on board that will allow us to have live face to face meetings and workshops and the ability to answer questions and format those discussions. And we hope people start attending and we can have these discussions and get this movement going because we don't have time to wait anymore. We need to start getting together ASAP, like yesterday.
Yeah, I love it. I like that here too. It may not be our fault, but it is our responsibility. And what I love about that is um sometimes it is our fault, but it's definitely our responsibility. Sometimes it's not our fault, but it's still our responsibility. So I love that statement there.
Yeah, we need to fail better every day. I mean, we need to take risks. We need not to be afraid to fail, but we need to learn from our mistakes and fail better every day. And we all need to do this. This is not you, me, or anybody else. It's all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we have about 3 minutes left, Mark, how would you like to wrap our conversation up? But the time again just goes so quickly.
Yeah. So let's start with restatement of what this is about. What kind of world do you want to live in?
Mm,
I mean, do you want to live alone? Because if we continue to pursue the path that we are pursuing, yeah, there are going to be fewer and fewer of us, and then there are going to be none of us. And I don't care whether you've got a bunker in Utah or in the Cayman Islands. And by the way, side note on irony, I find it really funny that the town in Utah that is growing that doesn't have water is where a lot of people have their survival bunkers. But that aside,
that's funny.
um, there's no place that is going to be safe from climate change and lack of food and lack of water. There's no amount of water you can store once we've used our resources up, and no amount of food you can store that are going to get you through it. Just that's reality. Um, it's getting worse every day. Bailey is out there fighting the good fight every day. He's doing everything he can do every day. Marwan is doing everything he can do every day. Pastor Ellington, a lot of people are doing what they can do every day. But until we start addressing the cancer that is our cultural framework and our social contract, we can't fix it. And to do that, we need to get together in our neighborhoods and find human commonalities. And then we need to bring that up to the community level through representation of the neighborhoods. And then we need to create grassroots networks. And then we can start driving change. It'll also be a lot less frustrating
Absolutely.
and a lot more human. And, we can have a lot of fun doing it.
You know what? That is a very true statement. We can have a lot of fun doing it.
Yep.
Many hands make light work, but you can whistle while you work.
Yep. And we can break bread. And that's something that all of us can agree on.
Yeah. And once you start seeing that change happen, it's very empowering and infectious.
And we reach a tipping point, it starts happening fast everywhere.
Yeah, that's true also, for sure. For sure. So again, tell everyone where they can get the latest and greatest information, Mark.
So you can go to the www.reseco.org. You
Hmm.
can get all of the events and everything that's going on at the Kitsap Resiliency Project page on Facebook. And if you're interested in getting involved, please ask to become part of Resiliency Rocks, which is the group, subgroup to Facebook, where we actually talk about getting things done.
All right. So there you have it. Another great hour. I know we have a really powerful show coming up next Wednesday, so you're not going to want to miss that. Next Wednesday, what is the date next Wednesday?
Let's see.
The
Next
first?
Wednesday is the
Is that the fourth?
nope, the 6th.
The sixth. Okay.
Okay, but
Uh,
the big show is on the 13th.
on the 13th. All right.
That's episode 25 is on the 13th, and we have some special guests that will be joining us, and we will not be having it in our separate offices, but we will be having it at the New Horizons Ministries thanks to Pastor Ellington. And we will be talking about what the future could bring. And we'll have some people we will be posting questions to.
All right. So do stay tuned for more information on that. And it would be great if you were to join us in person. I think that would be fantastic.
It would be.
All right. Well, another great show. Resilient Ecosystems. Mark Boatwright-Frost, Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday. Be good to each other. All right, everyone. We'll be back at 3 p.m. for our housing conversation with Bremerton Housing Authority.